Thank you for coming. My name is Ben Kramer. I'm IS consultant with Greenmark Equipment, also serve as company agronomist. With me today is Bennett Rieke, the tillage specialist with Deere & Company. He covers Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. Today we're going to talk about residue management and tillage. When we talk about residue management, where does residue management start? It starts with the combine, the different head types, residue, and so forth left therein. We want to spread it widely, uniformly, and have it processed by the combine. Bennett, as we think about tillage and residue management, for the guys in the customer base that are wanting to talk about high-speed tillage, what offerings do we have?
Yeah, so as we kind of look at the whole residue management piece in the high-speed tillage game, the first one that comes to mind is the 2680H. So as we look at kind of what that can do with the residue management, and we look at it in the fall time, we're going to probably bury a large majority of our residue with the 2680H. With the serrated or notch blades on the front of that tool, we can mix, bury, chop up a lot of that residue, and really create a finish that is desirable to come back to in the springtime.
Okay. On the 2680H, what options do we have for a customer that would really like to be aggressive with his tillage?
Yeah, so if you're going to be really aggressive in the fall time specifically, so if it's really a fall applicable tool to you, you're not really looking for that multi-season, multi-purpose tool, we're probably going to look more at the notch blades in the front, smooth blades in the rear, and then the cage roller on the back. So we've got a few different options on that tool. You can go notched with the blades to get kind of the maximum chopping and kind of sizing. We can also do a rubber roller, which really is the springtime best option to create a seed bed, really firm that soil down, and create that kind of firm seed bed that you want to plant into.
Okay. On the 2660, there's considerable options to work with on the 2660. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so as we look at the 2660, this is kind of our tool that we go from the 2680H and kind of work our way down as far as kind of how heavy or how much residue you really want to move in the fall time. So the 2680H is a great tool to really bury, mix, and kind of put a lot of that residue, incorporating it into the soil. As we look at the 2660, we're going to do a little bit more of that chopping, sizing, and pinning down to the ground. So we do have that tool, and we have the availability to adjust the gang angle all the way from 0 degrees, which is the least aggressive you can get, all the way to that 12 degrees, which is the most aggressive you can get. So if you look at the differences there between the 2680 and the 2660, we're looking at about 14 degrees in the rear on the 2680 and 17 degrees in the front. So it's a little bit more aggressive, which means as far as residue management, we're going to bury more of that. We can kind of put a little bit more soil on top of that residue. Versus with the 2660, as aggressive as we can get, you're still not going to bury quite as much of that residue. But what it does give you the ability to do is kind of vary that throughout the soil profile or the field. So if you've got different soil types, different residue amounts on the lower side of the ground versus the higher side of the ground, or there's just different fields, different crop conditions, the 2660 gives you that ability to really vary how much residue you want to bury and really how much you want to chop in size.
As we think about finishing options to the 2660, what finishing options are out there?
Yeah, so the 2660 has a dual basket setup. So that front basket is our reverse knife edge basket. So as we look at kind of that residue management piece in the fall and what those baskets are doing in the fall time, that's going to be an extremely important piece of the puzzle. It's going to take some of that residue and pin it to the ground, because we all know that can be an issue. If you just kind of size the residue and leave it all sit up on top of the soil, it'll blow away and wash away in the wintertime. So if we have that front basket, we can adjust the pressure from anywhere from 0 to 900 pounds, and we can take that and actually pin that residue to the soil to keep it there all winter long. And then behind that first basket, we have either a flat bar or round bar. So depending on rocks, soil types, and things of that nature, is where we're really going to pick and choose between those two baskets. So that's just your traditional, kind of breaks up some of those bigger clods and firms the soil a little bit on the back.
Okay. As we talk about the 2680H, what are our different configurations and finishing options there.
Yep, so we've talked a little bit about the cage roller. That's going to be your most universal finishing option. That's going to be probably your best for in the fall application, just because it's going to break up some of those crumbles. It's going to pin the residue that's left on top of the ground to the ground. And then we go to the rubber roller, which is kind of a dual purpose. Predominantly, it's going to be your springtime, really useful roller. It's going to create a fantastic seed bed. In the fall time, it will break up those clods and do what you want as well. So it's kind of dependent upon if you're going to predominantly use it in the spring or predominantly use it in the fall as to which one of those two you're going to choose.
Okay, so for the customers wanting an aggressive mixing tool, fall focused, a 2680H would be a nice tool. For the customer wanting a combo tool, 2660 would work well both in the spring and the fall with variable intensity in the tillage and incorporation of the residue.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you want to get really aggressive and bury a large majority of that residue, the 2680H is going to be your tool. If you want to be that kind of in between, you want to bury some residue, you want to get somewhat aggressive, but your main goal is sizing and kind of pinning a lot of that residue to the ground, getting some of it incorporated, that's where your 2660 is going to come into play.
Okay. For the customers that want to incorporate and release residue, release compaction, how does that lineup look from Deere?
Yeah, so when we look at kind of more of your conventional, more aggressive combination tillage tools, we've got a couple different options there. So the first one we'll look at is the 2720 ripper. So that's your traditional disc ripper that we've seen for many years. What that is it's going to manage your compaction by really getting those shanks down deep and pulling up that compaction layer. But then at that same pass, it's going to manage your residue. So you can bury a large majority of your residue with that tool, no different than you would with a traditional disc. And then the other tool, which is one just like we have behind us, is our 2730 combination ripper. So this is a fantastic tool. If you look at the front disc, that's going to be able to manage all the residue that you've got on your field. You can really bury a large majority of it if you want, or you can raise those discs independently to really look at kind of managing some of it, burying some of it, but not burying all of your residue. You can manage your compaction up to 16 inches deep with the tool. So that allows us to really get down and break up those compaction layers that are created by maybe you got to skip a year with a tillage practice, or you've got a lot of water that was on this field for a season or something of that sort. And then we have a closing disc section of this tool as well. So we kind of go from that residue management to the compaction management to kind of that closing and finishing tool towards the back of the tool. So it's really kind of your one pass fall tool, and then if you're in the right conditions and the right situations, it's possible to come back in the spring and plant right into that finish.
Okay, so it would create a suitable, level, stale seedbed environment.
Yep, in the right conditions it will.
Okay, as we talk about technology or think about technology, what technology is out there for tillage, the tillage pass?
Yep, so these tools that we've talked about, they have the option to install TrueSet on them. So TrueSet is our technology that allows us to independently adjust these tools from in the cab. So traditionally, when you get into one field with different soil types, the yield's going to be different, the amount of residue is going to be different in that field. And so really adjusting the tillage tool is going to give you your optimal tillage pass. Well, when you don't have the ability to do that from in the cab, it doesn't happen very often. But with TrueSet technology, we do have the ability to adjust each tool individually, section by section, from in the cab with the button push. And with that technology, we also get prescription and documentation capabilities. So if we want to go a next step farther and we want to write a prescription on a yield map to really tell us how much residue is here and how much residue is here, we have the ability to write a prescription and have the tool automatically adjust throughout the field, dependent upon residue amount or soil types or a lot of different factors that we can look at.
Bennett, thank you for coming today and talking over tillage and agronomy with me. Viewers, thank you for stopping in.